Bitcoin supply held by long-term holders, which again is 1 year or more, has now reached around 63%. And I really like this comment right here stating, paper hands capitulating, while diamond hands are accumulating. And this is what I've been indicating on my channel for such a long time and trying to make you guys understand this. You see, people talk about, price every single day. But remember what I've been saying, when there is, major amounts of fear across the board, who's accumulating? It's the long-term holders, people that have obviously, the vision for the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years. And again, this does not surprise me, but, welcome back to the Crypto ZX channel, to the XRP family. Appreciate you guys as always for showing tremendous amount of love. Looking across the market, we are seeing a lot of excitement, within the markets. And I did indicate, meme coins are actually gaining traction, actually outpacing utility projects, which I'm sure not a lot of people are complaining about, because of course, this does indicate that, market is seeing some excitement. But of course, we still need to be looking out for some of the targets that, we have set for ourselves. But as far as XRP's price is concerned, it is up 1.5%, with the price currently sitting at $2.47, slowly but surely approaching at that 23.6 zone. We're down a little bit in Bitcoin comparative with the valuation at 143.3 billion and the 24-hour trading volume at about $2.6 billion. But before we get into it any further, as always, just a quick disclaimer: anything on this channel is not financial advice. Always do your own due diligence and research when you are investing in crypto. So, over half of US states, 26 out of the 50 states, have now introduced Bitcoin reserve bills, many proposing to allocate up to 10% of the state funds into crypto. Wisconsin led the way, becoming the first state to buy ETFs of Bitcoin, holding about $588 million as of Q4 of 2024. And I think this is really going to, play out for other states and as well as other countries, kind of going on board as well. And of course, especially the neighbors, Canada, might implement this as well. Let me know your personal thoughts on that. But look at this. The SEC Crypto Task Force just announced they will be hosting 4 more crypto roundtables. These meetings will be held on April the 11th, April 25th, and May 12th, as well as June 6th. Pretty much, close to one another. And you can see this for yourself. This is going to obviously have discussion regarding, regulatory clarity within the digital asset space. And, we are hearing so much right now as far as, digital assets are concerned, especially the lawsuits being dropped. I think that was pivot moment, in the right direction. And I think now, people are looking out for maybe, banks start offering, crypto to, crypto services to their clientele, as well as, ETF approval, across the board. Again, speaking about ETF approval, we're going to kind of go into that next. You can see this for yourself. Ripple and BlackRock creating XRP ETF question mark. CEO drops a bombshell on Bloomberg Crypto. Ripple CEO Gerlinghouse hints at a game-changing connection between, the biggest asset manager, which is BlackRock, and Ripple launching an XRP ETF in the US. Stating, we think it's time and, makes sense for XRP community overall. Could BlackRock and Ripple be collaborating on an XRP ETF? And, kind of, backing this right here, Crypto.com CEO Chris explains how XRP ETFs will attract $1 billion of inflows. And your boy Crypto ZX has been talking about this for such a long time. Before any of these people were even discussing this, I was talking about how XRP ETF will change everything, and I think it will outpace Ethereum by a massive margin. And we tend to hear a lot of conversation regarding the potential of XRP flipping Ethereum once again. I still think that is a possibility because obviously it missed that last bull market, and also on top of that, it deserves the credit it gets. And of course, if there is an IPO, I think that brings in more excitement. So I think it has a lot of good things lined up for itself. And I think, this ETF could change the game. But, major news coming out of, Stewart as well. The final crossing of the T's and the dotting of the I's. And what should be my last update on the SEC against Ripple ever. Last week the SEC agreed to drop its appeal without conditions. Ripple has now agreed to drop its cross appeal. The SEC will keep 50 million of the 125 million fine already in an interest-bearing escrow in cash, with the balance returned to Ripple. The agency will also ask the court to lift the standard injunction that was imposed earlier at the SEC's request, all subject to commission vote, drafting of final documents, and usual court process. Thanks all folks. That's all folks. And here we have it, the end. And I think now we move into the direction of innovation, within the US and obviously globally. It's already happening. But let me know down below what your personal thoughts are regarding that. And look at this, XRP whales are scooping. A whale bought 6.7 million XRP from Upbit exchange, and again, shouldn't really be a surprise. And of course, this types of moves always brings the question, so why is the price now moving? Because of course 6.7 million, of course that is a big one, but that doesn't really have a major impact in the long term for the price. And of course I still do believe OTC is where the big players are buying up XRP, and I still believe that is something that people don't realize. But looking at Bitcoin dominance here, of course it is pulling down right now, 61.46%, but in the grand scheme of things we're still high. In terms of the dominance, Bitcoin is having an absolute field day. We're currently sitting at $88,000. I did mention to you guys in my other updates that we're looking at Bitcoin trying to break towards the upside. We've seen several retests at 88K. Of course, we have seen rejections, but looks like BTC does want to break out, because of course if you're looking at it from the March 10th, you are seeing BTC in this upward trajectory, and the 23.6 is a level that I do believe could be in play in the upcoming days ahead of us. And it's only a 5% move from where we currently are, and if 88K is able to break out, I think we could actually start heading up to that range. But if you're looking at XRP, something very similar. XRP of course wicked up to the likes of 250 just 2 days back, but right now you're starting to see something very similar playing out for XRP. We actually tried breaking out that $2.48 a few times, but we're obviously seeing a little bit of a rejection around this range. We're about to see a third retest around that level, and again, obviously a major resistance. You could see this for yourself, just basing it off of just March alone. Again, it kind of dates back to the previous cycles as well. But if this is able to break out, I do believe the 23.6 is a level to be looking out for, because if we're able to see a close in this range, I think we could start heading towards all-time highs, which again we haven't seen since 2018 high. But the fact that we're getting closer and closer to the 23.6 is something I'm very, very excited for, and I do believe XRP could be seeing some excitement in the upcoming days, especially if Bitcoin were to head up to some of these levels that we're discussing. Let me know down below what you guys think. Of course, love you all. See you later. I've been Crypto ZX, and peace out.